Hey guys, this is Eric with Eric and Nikki, and today we're going to show you the benefits of an LLC for real estate. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and always leave us a comment. Everybody always says, is it better to buy property in your personal name, create an LLC? Is there a tax benefit? Is there protection benefits? What are the ins and outs? Should I do it? Should I not do it? I'm gonna give you a couple of different things on the advantages and a couple of different on the disadvantages. Let's start with advantages. What is an LLC? An LLC is a limited liability corporation that allows you to have tax advantages, deductions, of course, through tax advantages, and asset or personal protection. Some states, unfortunately, though, do not recognize single member LLCs as having that protection. So definitely want to look at each individual state. Tennessee, however, does. So Tennessee is where we're at. I own an LLC and I run everything through that LLC. If for some reason, something happened on one of my properties and I got sued, they would be suing the LLC. They would not, however, be coming after me personally on that case, unless you had basically called piercing the corporate veil, which I'll get into that a little bit later. And then likewise, if the individual is being sued, it's very difficult to go after the assets in the LLC, especially multiple members, right? So if you've got a dual member LLC, one of the members gets sued for having a car wreck, then the other member of that LLC is good and safe, and so is the property. They could only get the money that comes out from the K1 or distribution from that property. Definitely some advantages there. But do you really need it? If you're only doing one, maybe two properties, maybe you're holding two rental properties, maybe you're doing one flip, the disadvantages and advantages may not outweigh themselves. So the biggest disadvantage with the LLC that comes into play is that you get 15.3% self-employment tax. Normally when you have a company, your company pays half of the taxes to the government, and the other taxes come from your W-2 paycheck. It's normally about 7.5, right? 7.6, 7.6, something like that. So when they come together, you've got 15.3%. Without that employer, you become the employer, then you have that 15.3% self-employment tax on any money that comes from the LLC or any other pass-through entity. So a single member LLC is a pass-through entity. What that means is you have the protection, but the income goes on your Schedule C for your taxes. So because of that self-employment tax, it doesn't always benefit a onesie, twosie type flipper or investor. However, if you're doing more than, I would say, three, it is exceptionally beneficial to have an LLC, even with the employment tax. I think it's beneficial as well because if you have more than one member, you want to protect all the members equally. And you want to protect the members from stupidity, other people's stupidity and their own members' stupidity. That helps everybody feel better about having an LLC. Would it be beneficial to do an LLC on every property? That gets, depends on what type of property. We do LLCs on all of our builds just because we want to make sure that each individual build is its own. So that's a little bit different, but we run most of our properties out of one LLC. So if you wanted to create a rental property LLC and maybe a flipping LLC, I would think that would be a good idea. You can also check into, advantages of an S Corps. S Corps though are not as good as LLCs for holding property. They are much better, however, for flips and quick, capital gains type income, not so much for the holding of the property. Now, other advantages of the LLC, the biggest two advantages to the LLC. So number one is if you file an LLC in Wyoming, it's very difficult to track down the owner. They're a non-disclosure state. So if you buy property with your LLC, it's very difficult to track you down as the owner. So that is a major, major benefit if people are coming after you directly, something happens to the property, anything like that. Highly recommend that. The other thing is deductions. I've talked about it a little bit earlier, but Section 179 deduction allows you to deduct almost the whole price of a vehicle over 6,000 pounds. You can get business lines of credit and use that to grow. You can do a lot of things that are not tied to your personal name and your personal credit. So you get all these business entities, business deductions, get all this business stuff, and when you go try and do something on your own, it doesn't affect your personal credit or your personal worth unless you're doing what's called a personal guarantee. So if you're a newer company, most banks and things will make you do a personal guarantee. So those are some of the benefits and some of the disadvantages to an LLC. How do you start one? I currently file multiple LLCs. I do mine through my Secretary of State. They have an online portal. You go onto the Secretary of State, you make sure that there's no other names from your LLC, right? And then you put all your information. The cost of that in Tennessee is $300. You can have an attorney file it for you, but most of the time they're gonna charge you double or triple that to file the paperwork. Once you get your LLC set up, you always wanna have your operating agreement as well. Even if you're a single member LLC, definitely have your operating agreement. You have your organizational docs, okay? Your articles of organization, and then you always want to get what's called an EIN number. And an EIN number, you go to irs.gov and they'll walk you through how to get an EIN number. And that just allows you to take all these deductions that I'm talking about. Now, if you need a quick and easy operating agreement, I highly recommend Rocket Lawyer. It's $35 and they handle everything for you. They also can handle separate states LLC filing. So if you're in Tennessee, you want to file a Wyoming LLC, it's really easy to walk through their system on how to file that Wyoming LLC. Highly recommend that. I don't have any affiliation with them at all whatsoever. I just use them every day. They're super easy to do the operating agreement. And any other legal documentation, it's just a click and fill, super easy to use. That is how you set up your LLC. The other thing you want to remember when doing an LLC, make sure you set up a bank account with that LLC. Do not put your own personal money into that. Make sure that it's only LLC funds. That was what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about piercing the corporate veil. When you commingle funds, then it allows us opened up to regulations and penalties when somebody comes after you or comes after that property. They can pierce into the property, they can also pierce out of the property. It's bad issues. So make sure that when you do set up your LLC, you get your EIN number, you set up your bank account, that is only used for that specific property. Guys, as a whole, I highly recommend LLCs. I think that having a per property LLC is even beneficial in some circumstances. Having a property LLC that holds multiple properties is also beneficial. I highly recommend them. I run all my properties through LLCs, and I think that you definitely should as well. Guys, as always, if you have any questions about LLCs, let us know, leave us a comment. Also, go follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Flip This Together. We also have a new website, thehensleygrouptn.com. If you have any questions on coaching or need any help with anything, go check us out there. We can help you.